So I've been presenting these results for 4 years now, and basically it's market research, which I know you'll all love. There's 2 different surveys that this is actually 3 based on work done this year. So firstly was the 6th annual survey of research buyers conducted in Singapore, April and May this year. So we've been doing this each year for 6 years. It's about 100 surveys in Singapore across multiple sectors. So this year included representation from consumer goods, media and entertainment, banking, hospitality, B2B, and a range of other categories. So these were interviews with corporations who engage external market research agencies for analysis and reporting, and at least once a year. And then there's an online stakeholder survey that has been running for several years now across Asia, over 200 surveys each time, which include clients as well, but other stakeholders, the so-called Big Four agencies, other global research agencies, agencies based in Asia, and also the support industries like the panel companies and software companies supporting the market research industry. And among the agencies, there's usually a high representation of the more senior management in the company. So let's go through some of the results. So first of all, let's look at the type of companies that are commissioning research. So this is in Singapore, among the agencies. What are they reporting as their main source of income? Well, 70% said their leading source of income is from major multinational corporations. That's followed by large local corporations, mid-sized corporations, and there's a fair amount of trade between research companies that they are subcontracting work to each other. And then lower down is public sector and other sources of research being ad agencies and management consultants. But interestingly, in the last year, there's actually been a fair shift. Still, multinationals are the leading source of business, followed by the large local corporations, but mid-sized corporations have scaled back. But what has taken its place, or what has kind of lifted the industry somewhat, is far more engagement or far more work for the government and public sector. And according to SMR figures, that's actually 15% of market research spend in Singapore today, compared against a global average of 8%. So there's actually, in Singapore, almost twice as much public sector work as you see in other markets, and certainly more than you would see in other Southeast Asian markets. And that's about over 20 million US per annum just in public sector. Some more SMR data from their global research report. In terms of how much is spent on market research in Singapore, after the global financial, there was a fall after the global financial crisis of around 15%, and it has recovered quite strongly up to, 2012. Now, there's possibly some distortions in these figures because we understand that some of the big agencies are actually centralizing their invoicing to Singapore. So work actually done in other countries is being invoiced from Singapore. So this might not actually reflect the reality, and it might not be real growth. And growth does seem to have leveled off from 2012 to 13. Some of you may have noticed also agencies struggling a bit in this market. Some have actually closed down in the last couple of years, and there's also been some scaling back among the big agencies. Now, based on the buyer survey, we do ask compared to the previous year, have your budgets gone up or down? And since 2012, there has been a fairly modest growth. It's a bit more in 2014 and 15, with 28% of clients reporting an increase of budget compared to 17 and 19% reporting a decrease. But it is fairly static, and one will also have noticed how many new agencies are coming into the market. So there is somewhat pressure on those suppliers fighting it out for their share of business. Again, talking of what clients say in terms of what type of research supplier they have used. So this is tracked from 2012. Who have you used? Which type of research supplier have you used in the last year? The large multinational research agencies, Nielsen, TNS, Ipsos, and Millward Brown, over 80%. Followed by the independent agencies or boutique agencies. What you'll notice from 2012 to 2013 is actually quite a big jump from 56 to 76. I can use my laser pointer here. 56 to 76, big jump in use of agencies just in that year. And their use is now as common as large multinational research agencies. DIY research, pretty common. 40% of clients are doing it themselves. The technology is there for them to do it. And we also have direct engagement with online panel companies. Around 40% of clients are going direct to panel companies. But what you also see is a range of other types of organization being used for research. Management consultants actually growing over the years. Specialist analytics companies used by a third, freelance consultants, branding consultants, even academic institutions. And what you'll also see is the growth of community panels. So that's clients using their own proprietary panels for often doing in-house research. The other notable thing which kind of correlates to this is, is the number of different vendors being used. So we take 100 different clients and we record how many different named suppliers they are using. And this just demonstrates the huge fragmentation of the industry. So in 2012, we recorded 26 different research agencies being used in Singapore. And that jumped to 65 in 2013, and that kind of corresponds with the big increased use of independent agencies from 2012 to 13. And it sort of fell back a bit 2014, but in 2015, 71 different agencies or different suppliers were used per 100 clients. So, and then the actual number of research suppliers used by clients has grown from 3.5 to almost 4 now. So they're basically, clients are spreading their business around more than ever. Now here's a useful piece of market research for all of you on the supply side is what, the question is put to the clients, what factors put the agency or research supplier into the consideration set for your projects? And the top criteria is track record of similar projects to what they're looking to do. And related to that is their reputation in that field, either in terms of the category or perhaps methodology. A range of other things, such as track record of good client servicing. That's actually number 3. And then you've got things like the team lead. They provide competitive prices, team members, approved vendor. At the bottom is international network and a big name. So it's those factors that used to be the key selling points of big agencies actually rank right to the bottom. And the factors that would, in the final selection of the agency for that project, we asked what were the top 3 factors. And before you say, oh, it's a price-driven market, all it's saying is that 64% of clients said that price would be in their top 3. It's surprising it's not 100% actually. So you could say, well, 36% of clients don't care about price. But it is obviously going to be a consideration. Also up there is a the record of similar projects, quality of proposal, innovative approach. But what actually comes down to lower is the project lead. So I mean, maybe because they feel that the project lead's actually not going to be so involved in the project as might be stated in the proposal. Now interestingly, the same question was asked of research agencies, asking them, well, what do you think clients evaluate agencies by? And there's some similarities, but there are some disparities. For example, agencies underestimate the importance of innovation, and they overestimate the importance of relationships, because you'll see actually relationships with the vendor is actually fairly low down in the final select, and familiarity with the vendor is actually fairly low down. So it's kind of based on merit rather than relationship. And who influences the decision on which agency to use? There are various influencers, the research department, senior management, internal clients such as marketing and sales department, and procurement. But what you do see is that the research department still has the most influence. So 3/4 of clients saying it's the research department rather than the internal clients or senior management who determine which supplier to be used. How easy is it, or how much freedom do you have to use new research suppliers? It can be an issue with some clients that might have global mandates and are told to, or forced to use agencies that they might not otherwise want to. But generally, clients, around 2/3 of clients say that they are completely or mostly free to choose their own research suppliers. And how easy is it to onboard suppliers? Can be a bit of a pain sometimes. Some of you may have noticed that in terms of paperwork and all that stuff. But it's, you know, in most cases, the client's saying it's fairly easy to onboard the client. So generally, it looks like it's an open market. The other thing, particularly for Singapore, a lot of international research. We looked at the dynamics of what happens where it's a client based in Singapore wants to do research in other markets. So in about a third of cases, the research firm in Singapore is used to then engage an agency in another market. But 40% of clients in Singapore will go direct to a research supply in the overseas market. That's if it's just one market. If it's multiple markets, that does fall from 40% to 13%, where they're dealing with different vendors in various markets. And you'll see that the multinational agencies are being used for quite a lot for this type of work. What is gained by dealing directly with a local agency? Well, local market understanding, lower costs by not having to go through a Singapore agency, ability to coordinate with, or the client's ability to coordinate with their own local overseas offices, accuracy, and also forces the client here to actually go to the local market. But what is lost? Consistency in reporting, maybe some analytical and reporting skills, not easy to meet the vendor, communications problems, and analysts not being able to learn from cross-market comparisons. The other big trend, of course, we saw with DIY research is the level of insourcing. So in Singapore, 90% of clients are insourcing their research to some degree, primarily from desk-based research or analysis of transaction data and web analysis. But they are also, with many clients setting up their own insight departments, they're also doing primary surveys online surveys, even qualitative research. And the level of insourcing is expected to increase going forward. So 23% said more insourcing versus 9% less insourcing. So general outlook, in terms of the rate of change facing the industry, this is a question that has been asked over the years. In 5 years' time, how do you see the industry? Very little change, some new change, like new methods, quite a bit, like different products and services, a lot in terms of big changes in the type of organizations, and tremendous, in other words, that we won't be around. And there is generally a view that in the next 5 years that there will be very different products and services, and also big changes in the type of organizations who will be providing research services. In terms of sentiment and confidence, overall, do you see the opportunities far more opportunities, somewhat more opportunity for the research industry, somewhat more threat, or far more threat? And it's interesting to compare clients who are enjoying a nicely supplied market against the agency. So the clients are generally quite optimistic. You'll see that most of them are saying far more opportunity, perhaps more opportunity for them as buyers. But for agencies, there has been this optimism in the early part of the decade and dropping off. The level of optimism has dropped off. You'll see that over 20% say there's actually more threat to the industry than opportunity. And actually that was most significant with the senior managers, the managing directors of agencies. They are the most pessimistic. And dare I say, it was also those working for the big multinational agencies. That's not an opinion, that was actually survey data, I might add. So in terms of what are the opportunities, main opportunity, second opportunity, third opportunity, over the years, the two leading opportunities have been leveraging on technology, such as mobile, online, and more value-add research. But other things like new methods, like eye tracking, big data, social media, although that's perhaps dropping off, that may have been a bit of a buzz a few years, but back in 2013 has dropped off. Growing consumerism has dropped off, and we are seeing some difficulties in markets like Indonesia. The once buoyant market of Indonesia is going a bit soft. And research buying on value rather than price, although there's a different view to that, which I'll come on to. Just since technology is the leading opportunity, based on some in-depth interviews with heads of panel companies conducted very recently, some of the feedback they gave about the role of technology includes, well, I mean, online research is very established in Asia Pacific now. There is, though, some resistance from agencies to move to more online methods simply because they've invested so much in their traditional data collection and they want to preserve those resources. Social media is now very key as a source of recruitment for new respondents. Panel management is getting pretty tough, high attrition rates, but this is an avenue for more recruitment, for example, for people who would not otherwise become panelists. And also the technology companies are teaming up with retailers and airlines to get access to their loyalty base, trading research and technology with these companies to open up to wider audiences, which I've just mentioned here, as well as development of community panels. Mobile research is growing, but we still have issues about interview length. Only a third of surveys reported by the panel companies are mobile compatible. In other words, they're short enough. And that compares to half in the West. So there's still issues about taming interview length in Asia. And speed and reach is the driver for online. So now internal clients, we've heard, are now actually bypassing their own market research departments to do research. in the name of speed and convenience. So you've got the marketing departments and PR departments in corporations now going direct to panel companies. Often it's very short dipstick surveys, 10 questions, results within 48 hours. Threats to the industry, usual threats, price pressure, open tenders, procurement, clients undertaking research in-house. Now the second largest threat, multinationals scaling back on research, poor quality field work, and the list goes on. But just to conclude, and summing up now, what do we see? Growth in the market research industry, but it is being spread around more and more to more vendors. So the MR agencies are going to have to demonstrate that their value through through the consultancy. Selling points of the large agencies seem to no longer matter, such as the regional network and the big name. Technology and the service providers now provide the reach and the ability to deliver for the smaller agencies. Switch to public sector is happening. That may be a distressed decision, but it's to sustain traditional market research as corporations undertake more research in-house. The public sector are not really doing much in-house research and still using quite a lot of traditional data collection like door-to-door surveys. Decentralization of budgets from Singapore to the regions will add further pressure on the market research agencies or clients dealing directly with agencies in the market. And the MR industry is experiencing its greatest change, or perhaps challenge as well, this decade, far more so than other decades, primarily driven by technology, but it's also clients' fundamental restructuring of the industry, frankly. So I wonder where we'll be in the next decade, so we will see.